the major headline, very much no survivors.
By cold light of day, the agony of Flight 5342. The American Airlines jet was on its way from Wichita in Kansas at 8:48 p.m. on Wednesday night and was just moments from landing in Washington, D.C. when disaster fell. This footage shows the plane approaching the runway at Ronald Reagan Airport, and to the left, a helicopter can be seen flying directly towards it. Seconds later, the two collide and both plummet into the freezing water below. It's not clear if the helicopter, a US military Black Hawk, saw the plane to its left as it flew low along the riverbank, but we do know from audio recordings that air traffic control told the helicopter to fly round the incoming plane moments before the collision.
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue 6342.
Runway 33 clear for land.
They call out to the Army helicopter, asking it to pass behind the plane.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass behind the CRJ.
This club has an aircraft in sight, precedent separation.
Then the helicopter collides with the plane.
Did you see that? X472.
On the ground, rescue crews rush to the scene as fire trucks can be seen hurtling towards the airport. We're here on the banks of the Potomac, and this is what we know so far, that the plane was coming into land when it crashed midair with the military helicopter. It was an American Airlines jet. There were 64 passengers on board, while there are 3 soldiers believed to have been on the helicopter. We do not know if anybody has survived, nor how it was even possible that the two could have collided midair so close to the airport, right here in the heart of Washington, D.C. This morning, officials said they believe no one from either aircraft survived the crash, and this heartache, that among the passengers on the plane were 14 members of the US figure skating community and some family traveling back from a training camp in Kansas, as well as 2 Russian former skaters.
Skating is a very close and tight-knit community. These kids and their parents, they're here at our facility in Norwood 6, sometimes 7 days a week. It's a close, tight bond, and I think for all of us, we have lost family.
As for the helicopter, the 3 soldiers on board were carrying out routine training when tragically officials said a mistake was made. As the rescue efforts turned to recovery today, last night, DC's mayor had few answers. There have been reports that the DCA tower contacted the helicopter moments before the crash to ask if they had sight of the aircraft, and apparently the helicopter reported that it did have sight of an aircraft. Is it possible that it had the wrong aircraft in sight? Do you have any sense of what went wrong in those final moments?
I know that the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation will be able to search on all of those questions. We wouldn't be able to talk about that tonight.
This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history.
But today, President Trump was only too willing to speculate on the cause of the deadly accident.
I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing.
I just watched President Trump's news conference. Listen, it's one thing for internet pundits to spew off conspiracy theories. It's another for the President of the United States to throw out idle speculation as bodies are still being recovered and families still being notified. It just turns your stomach.
Both sides playing politics a matter of miles from where divers are still searching for missing bodies, and families are grieving for loved ones lost in America's worst air disaster in decades. Well, Reagan National Airport opened this morning. You may see some planes taking off and landing there behind me. Meantime, the investigation into what caused this crash is ongoing. President Trump, in his press conference earlier, said it's at times like these, at moments like these, that Americans come together, need to unify. But then, of course, as he so often does, he began to play politics, blaming the Democrats and their incessant push for diversity and inclusion inside the Federal Aviation Administration, he claimed, and the hiring of people, as I said there in my piece, with severe intellectual disabilities, he alleged, who may have been in charge, he implied, of the air traffic control tower at the time of the incident, although I have to say there is absolutely zero evidence of that at this stage. He blamed those air traffic controllers for not warning the helicopters soon enough, and of course he blamed the helicopter pilots themselves for not doing enough to get out of the way. He said it was a clear night and you could see the lights blazing on the American aircraft. We are still waiting for further details of the passenger list and their nationalities, which we know included Russians as well as other non-Americans, the president said. We may get some of those details and what caused this terrible incident in the latest update to come within the hour.
Thanks, Siobhan. Siobhan Kennedy, live for us there in Washington, D.C. And joining me now from Alexandria in Virginia is the aviation expert, Peter Goltz. Thank you for joining us. What is your analysis of what you have seen and heard so far of what may have happened here?
Well, it's a little early to speculate, but very clearly, one of the aircraft was not in the position that it was supposed to be. The commercial aircraft, the PSA regional jet, appeared to be lined up appropriately and on close final, which means that it was less than 500 feet from the runway. The Black Hawk appeared to be perhaps out of his scheduled flight path, and the attention is going to be on where the Black Hawk was and why, and it'll take some time to figure that out.
And in that situation, you've got two aircraft who are on a collision course. Which one, when you've got a military and a civil aircraft, is obliged to change course ordinarily?
Well, under this circumstance, the responsibility rested with the Black Hawk. The commercial aircraft was, I say, on close final. The pilot, his sole responsibility, the flying pilot, was to keep his eye on the runway and to land the plane successfully. His co-pilot, his non-flying pilot, was responsible for operating the flaps, other parts of the other equipment on the aircraft, and communicating. They were focused on getting the plane down safely. The Black Hawk, which was in a routine flight, its responsibility was to see and avoid the aircraft, the commercial aircraft.
Yeah, now in the footage, you see a third aircraft. Now, what impact could that have had, if any at all?
Well, we don't know. And unfortunately, the Black Hawk will not have a voice recorder inside the cockpit. In the commercial aircraft, you have a voice recorder that records sounds and discussions in the cockpit, and a data recorder, which records what the aircraft is doing. My guess is the voice recorder in the commercial aircraft will simply record a very sudden decompression and explosion. We don't know.
There are some, aren't there, Peter? There are some very, very advanced systems in passenger planes to try and prevent this sort of horrendous crash. Would they have been effective during landing?
Well, yes, you have what's known as the TCAS, which is the collision avoidance system. But that is only effective above 1,000 feet. It's designed to keep aircraft in cruise altitude or climbing to cruise altitude out of conflict. Once it gets below 1,000 feet, TCAS begins to transition to a different system which prevents on-the-ground collisions. The plane was at about 500 feet, That system was not in play.
And Peter, I mean, you have a long history investigating these sorts of incidents. I mean, President Trump called a press conference this afternoon in which he speculated about the cause of this crash, and he suggested it could have been diversity hiring. What do you make of that?
Appalling. The idea that the president would start to speculate completely in an unfounded basis was simply appalling. The American safety system, which is considered the gold standard worldwide, was built on independent, unbiased investigations over 40 or 50 years. He started to dismantle that in 50 minutes.
Okay, Peter Goltz, we have to leave it there, but thank you ever so much.